Hi folks, and welcome back to another episode of the campaign vlog. And we're going to be fighting one of the two battles that was produced by the map movement. Take a quick swing up and across the map itself. What we're going to be fighting today is the battle in this section here, where the French corps under Renier was attempting to catch up with the Austrians as they were doing a fighting retreat across the countryside. They've finally made contact with the Austrians, and as a result of that, the Austrians have had to make a stand at the road junction. If we take a quick look at the forces of the Austrians, you've got the Austrian Grens and the Austrian Hussars and Dragoons in this section. In the centre you have the one of the Austrian infantry divisions with the reserve artillery, and on this flank you have the other Austrian division. They're slightly battered as they took a bit of a pummeling towards the end of the large battle. So basically they just got to hold this section off for the rest of the day. This will enable them to break and make a further move south down this road here, basically, because the Prussians are also fighting at the same time against the other French corps, and hopefully they'll do their part as well and manage to survive as well. If either of these battles goes wrong for the coalition forces, then I think it's pretty much going to spell the end of the coalition, because one or both are going to be trapped by far superior French forces, and it will only leave the Russians on their own, which are slowly but surely moving up the northwards, but haven't basically had to fight a battle yet. The village that was going to hold out against them didn't in the end with the dice rolls. They've basically abandoned the village and the bridge, so the Russians are steadily moving north, having not really had to fight a battle at all. This only leaves the Marshal Victor's very battered corps in front of them, so we could see the Russians thinking that they've won the campaign, because they're going to push the remnants of Marshal Victor out of the way, unless he by some miracle makes an amazing stand on the town and the bridge. But that's a little bit further on in the future. If we look at the French forces, we've got on the far side we have the Saxons, Uhlans and some Hussars. The rest of the Saxons aren't quite on the board yet. They appear on the beginning of the third turn's movement. We have a French division here and a slightly smaller French division here. They're basically going to try and finish off what's left of the Austrians as soon as they can, and that is the setup for the battle. Survival for the Austrians or victory for the French. Going to be using my own set of rules, Napoleonic War, great title. These are slightly old style wargaming, where we've got a lot of record keeping, so I won't bore you with that. I'll do that off camera, and I'll just continue to bring you the action. So we're going to move swiftly into turn one, and I'll see you in a bit. This is the end of turn one. Austrian artillery has been firing away, and the Austrians have shifted across, and the Austrian Hussars are moving around the flank, and the French themselves have basically moved up, exchanging artillery fire, and the Saxon cavalry are moving around on this flank here, either to work their way into the village or just to turn the Austrians' flank. And that's the end of turn one. Return in a bit with the end of turn two. And here we are at the end of turn two. The Austrian reserves artillery has been moved up fully now and pounding the French as they come across, causing some casualties. French artillery in return firing across the valley at the Austrians, causing some casualties. And if we look over in this quarter here, the French artillery is continually pounding away on the town, and the French light have engaged the border Grens as well. Both cavalry wings are swinging round to each other, so there's going to be a bit of a cavalry engagement, I imagine, over here somewhere. And beginning of turn 3, the Saxons are going to start appearing sort of in this area here. So there you have it. End of turn 2. I'll come back with a summary of turn 3. And here we return at the end of turn 3. French are still pushing forwards. In fact, they've had some success in the town here. They've the French light have pushed the border Grens all the way back to here now. Over in the cavalry quarter, the Saxons and the Austrians are squaring up to each other, so they're going to go in for an attack. The Saxon division has arrived on the table, so yeah, the Austrians are spreading themselves out to try and bring as much firepower on the advancing French and Saxons as possible to slow them down. But yeah, there's a lot of French and Saxons on the board, so looks to be going the French and Saxons way at the moment. But I'll return on the end of turn 4. Back again, the end of turn 4, and cavalry over here as the Austrian hussars have well and truly stopped the Saxons in their track, inflicted quite a lot of casualties as well, actually. So going to test this one at the beginning of the turn. The Austrian dragoons are just moving up on the flanks because pan out a little bit. It does look like the French division here are basically trying to turn the Austrians' flank here with weight of numbers, so the dragoons are just sliding in here just to stop anything coming through this village here. Still got a sizable Austrian infantry unit here unmoved yet, so if anything, if it does look as if it's going bad on this flank, they might slide across, although they're also taking a lot of pressure from the centre as well now. Seems to be an artillery duel going on here. This French advance just seems to be unstoppable. They're quite happy to move forwards. This one, however, has stalled slightly. It's just the sheer firepower that's been hit from along this side. So they're stalling slightly now, but they're still pressing forward. And of course, they have the Saxon division behind them to help as well. So yeah, it's all to play for so far. The end of turn 4, and back again with a quick summary. And end of turn 5, and the Saxon cavalry have been well and truly pushed backwards, and they're on the retreat. Dragoons have slid over, and I think this unit has slightly moved over as well. The zoom in a bit, border Grens are grimly hanging on to this area here as they're being driven back slowly but surely by the French light, and the rest of the French divisions moving forward as well, taking control of that flank. The Saxons are pressing forwards. This brigade basically stalled and started to withdraw, so they'll slip into this position here and get themselves back into order. The Austrians have basically developed a nice arc line across to try and bring as many guns to bear as possible, try and slow down the French and Saxons. And that's the end of turn 5. We've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more turns to go, so I'll be back in a bit. And at turn 6 now, and take a sweep across the battlefield. The Saxon cavalry are definitely on the run. The border Grens finally gave up the struggle for the village, so the French are well and truly in charge of this section here. They're also increasing the pressure on the Austrian centre as well. Dragoons just threw themselves into the village to try and stem the tide, but I don't think they're going to come off too well in the town. And the French have completely withdrawn now and are reorganising themselves with their brigade commander. The Saxons are moving rapidly for the Austrian flank as well. Don't think the Austrians are going to hold them in this section here, because there is a lot of Saxons coming in their direction. So yeah, it's now it's looking sort of other than this flank here, which the Saxon cavalry have lost, it's not looking too good for the Austrians. They've still got some fresh troops here, which they're going to need to hold into this section here, so they have no reserve. If the Saxons do manage to punch a hole through here, then they're in trouble. And also the French have still got their other guys down here reorganising themselves as well. So yes, it's looking pretty dicey for the Austrians. I think it's the sheer weight of number that's causing them problems, but I'll be back in a little while for another summary. And back at the end of turn 7, and the Austrian centre and flank is well and truly buckling under the weight of the French attack. The Dragoons didn't really do much at all. They tried their best, but they were just bounced back out of the village by the firepower of the lights and line infantry. The Austrian cavalry are just pretty much mopping up the Saxon cavalry, but I couldn't get them to rally, so they're going to chase them off the field, no doubt, and not come to the aid of their failing centre. The Saxons, despite taking casualties from the artillery and the infantry fire, they're still moving on. They're just shrugging that off, and they're going to make contact in the next turn. So it's not looking good. The French have also rallied as well, so they're ready to move forward in the event that the Saxons don't do the biz. But it's looking pretty tough for the Austrian situation now. So I don't know if they're going to hold much longer. They've got another 4 turns to hold out to give them the tactical win on the battle, holding this road and the French assault, so they could join the Prussians down here. But it's looking more and more unlikely that's going to happen, because they are coming under severe pressure. I'll keep you posted. I'll come back with another summary. And the end of turn 8, and the Austrians are just about holding on in there with the weight of the some reserves, but the French are well and truly in charge of this flank here. They've only got the battered border Grens and the equally battered Dragoons to push through, and then this flank has collapsed, and the centre then will be enveloped. And again, the Austrians are still holding bitterly somehow against this section here as well. They've taken the tidal wave of Saxons. They've pretty much stopped them in their tracks with some seriously hard hand-to-hand fighting going on. But the sheer weight of numbers is going to tell, because they're pretty outnumbered 2-1 in that section as well. So I'm surprised, but they're still there, the Austrians, and the cavalry are pretty much off the board now, so we don't have to worry about those at all for the rest of the game. So I'll come back with a summary of the next turn. And here we have it at the end of turn 9. This flank has collapsed, the centre's withdrawing as well. So we can see a little. The Dragoons once again has thrown themselves into the fray to try and stem the tide of French infantry. Yeah, the centre's gone basically, so they're going to start withdrawing, and still the flank is holding against the Saxons somehow. Pretty lucky dice rolling. But the French are again on the move again as well, so that's going to fall, that flank. So it's pretty much curtains for the Austrians. I'm going to play one more round just to see what happens, and I'll get back to you with the final round and the summary of the battle. And here we have it at the end of turn 10. Definitely a French win with their Saxon allies. The Saxons slowly but surely broke through this section here, but this section here is amazingly still standing, but it's only a question of time for the French as well move in and push through. The Austrian centre as well is really gone. They're on the way out as well. They're withdrawing under pressure. A little bit of success was some amazing dice rolling, and the Saxon dragoons have managed to push this French section back. Yeah, lots of cheering going on in that corner. It's pretty much the only Austrian success of the day, really, apart from their cavalry over here. Although a little harsh, really, because they fought really well, considering they were outnumbered from the start, and with the addition of another Saxon division moving in as well, it was pretty much a big ask, really, for the Austrians to hold the position. So that's just about it now. They're going to have to do a hasty withdrawal, so I'm going to have to roll the dice to see what sections make it out of there, or whether the Austrians are going to just call it a day and be marched off to a camp somewhere. Thanks again for watching, as always, taking time to watch my campaign vlog. Any questions, queries about the rules, leave a comment and I'll get back to you. And as always, bye for now.